Hola, welcome to Coffee with Avila. I'm Aviana Lemaire, and on this station we talk about neurodivergence and greater living. This might be a delicately, slowly paced video, but it ought to be rather quick. If you saw the title and clicked, then you know it's about autism and religion. It's about autism and Christianity. And the reason why I want to put this out here is because I get this onslaught inside and outside of the autistic community. It seems like outside in the world as a whole, maybe there's some kind of trope, almost like a media-based trope, where the autistic person is too logical to have faith, because faith isn't logical. I'm not going to pretend that it is. Your concept of how logical it is to you and in your own life, as with, I believe, every other thing, is based on your personal experience, where you are, what you feel. But there's a concept that because as autists we are logical beings, we're somehow not religious, and that if we are, it's more like a practice and less like a faith. This is what I'm running into. I don't know who else is running into it. If you're running into that, or if you're running into something different, leave it in the comments. I keep running into it outside of the community and inside of the community. I'm running into the same thing. And sometimes other autists are coming at me, not in a bad way, just coming at me like in a conversation. They're sort of like, no, there's no reason for the religion, there's no reason for the faith. It's kind of like, it's a pastime I respect in you, but I don't get it. And that's fair. But what's surprising me is that I guess I would have thought it would be more of a trope outside of the community, and that enough of us inside of the community would be having the conversation, because I know some people who have been or are currently Christians or religious. They have some kind of faith. I need to breathe. This is not something I usually talk about. I just feel like right now I need to talk about it. So I'm just going to talk about my experience. I need to calm down a little bit, but I'm freaking out because, like I said, I don't usually talk about it, and I have myriad reasons why. I'm a person who lives in peace. And I learned early on in my life, not everyone is. So I've just kind of hidden this about myself, or let a person who can see it. I'm a Christian. And that's something I basically have never said in private. And I very seldom have said it to anyone in private, and even less often have I shared anything about it. Because for me, it's not just something I do, and it's not just a tradition, it is a faith. And it's not just, I was taught to believe in this thing and so I do. If I'm going to be honest, the people and places that wanted me to believe, eventually it seemed like they had done everything in their power to stop me from being able to believe. So if I were going to believe because of them and what they said, that would have been dead long ago. I've been around the world and back again, and I don't want to get into it. I guess maybe I'm willing to get into it. Let me just take a small moment and sip and breathe. I don't know how many people know how overwhelming this can be as a subject just to bring up. But like I said, this is something I feel. And I have a lot of strong feelings right now that say, bring this up. So I'm going to do it. And I'm going to have faith. So I'm going to take a small sip and then continue. See if I can calm myself. And I'm having that moment now where my neurodivergence is kicking in, and it's hard for me to keep my eyes open and talk about this because there's a lot going on in my head. There's a lot of chaos, and I've got a light right in front of my face, directly in front of my face. So it's a lot to think about, but I'm trying to keep myself lit. So what I'm trying to say on this subject is, it doesn't seem like I'm running into a lot of people, even inside the community, who are talking about this. So I want to come out and be the voice of one who is autistic and ADHD and of faith. I've never heard anyone, I don't know what's going on inside or outside of the ADHD community about faith, so I can't talk about that. But I am autistic. I do believe. And the reason why, which I think when I hit record was the point of this video, but it's a large, lifelong subject, and I can get sidetracked when I'm exceptionally nervous. So I'm going to take another point. The reason why I'm talking about this, another point, another sip. The reason why I'm talking about this is because the reason I'm talking about this is because I would like to give an answer to the question of why and how I can be a logical autist and also be a person of religion or faith. And the answer is not something I've ever heard anyone say before. It's not going to be a religious answer. And it's not going to be a logical answer. It's not going to be a scientific one. It's extremely personal. And it's not something I've often shared. Even when I've talked in private, I haven't often shared this. The reason why I believe, after everything I've been through, is because I, at all times in my life, without end, can feel the presence of my God. It's not a sensation that happens when I'm in a room. I heard somebody once say that they experienced excitement when they were in a church, but it was the same thing you can get if you go to a concert. I thought, that's true, that's interesting. I can't disagree if you're walking in and it's that energy kind of thing. This isn't walking into a room. It might interest a lot of people to know there have been a lot of churches I've been in my life, a lot of Christians I've been around, and a lot of Christian events. And I have felt the presence of God no differently there than I have in any other place in my life most of the time. The grander majority of the time, I'm not sure if I've ever felt more of my God in any of these places or in any of these people than I have ever felt it walking down the street, falling asleep, stepping into my closet, sitting in a car, shopping for a CD, scrolling online. My sense of this isn't based on being in an area with a certain energy. My sense of this is something I've had 24/7 all of my life. I explained it to one person as this. I'm having a thought that I don't think I fully explained. I said earlier that I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot in the church, felt a lot of the time. I've been through a lot in the church and outside the church with Christians who aren't in the church. I've seen a lot of things, a lot of experiences. And a lot of them, a huge amount of them, felt like they were trying to push me away from my belief system. There was hypocrisy, and there were a lot of hurtful statements, beliefs, confusing beliefs, things that seem to fly in the face of what the Bible has to say about love. So I'm just going to say it. My battery just died and I don't remember where I left off. So instead of going through the hexades that is taking my card out and checking, I'm just going to keep talking about my story. I'm going to restart. If you hear a repeat, I'm sure there's some reason why I left it in when I edit it. But what I'm saying is, I've had a conversation, and I remember a particular conversation with a particular friend, but I've had this conversation a few times when basically people ask me how I can believe in God, and then they list a whole bunch of things that different people have been doing throughout history, different parts of different, like the Christian church as a whole. They're asking me about different sort of subsidiaries of it. Did I just shadow myself completely? I'm going to keep rolling with it because I'm nervous, so I got to get this over with. The point is, took a moment to breathe when the battery went out. Breathing again here. The point is, this one particular conversation that I remember with this one particular friend, they were thinking about their own life and what they want to do with themselves, spiritually or otherwise. And it was just a safe place, safe space conversation with another autist. And they were asking me why I could believe and how I believed and how this is always the one, People are always asking me how I explain everyone's behavior throughout the history of time who has claimed to be a Christian. And without getting into it, there's always going to be a difference between claiming something and actually embodying it or having it be true. I could say that. But in this case, I remember noticing that everything that I was being asked about my faith had to do with groups of people and their behavior, individual people and their behavior, political doctrines, monetary concerns, general things that are all about human beings. I didn't have the words to put it into words then so that it was easy to explain, but I started to wonder why it is that every time I've had a conversation with someone and they have asked me about my faith, the conversation on their end is never about faith, and it's never about God. It's always about something else and how they relate those things to God. It's never even really focused on how I relate those things to God. It's just kind of asking me to explain all of these behaviors from all these other people. Like I said, I don't even know if they're Christians. It's your right to say what you are. It's not about me deciding. It's not about me making a judgment. That's on you. If you are or aren't something, or if you're a person who would like people to believe that you are or aren't, there are a lot of reasons for people to say things. I can't say that everyone who says they believe in what's supposed to be the essence of love would say it. I don't know why they'd say it. I don't know why they'd say that and then become the living essence of hate. I know that people seldom say this, but in the Christian church, we know this thing. We've read this thing. It says, you will know them by their ways. So if someone is claiming to have a personal relationship with an entity that's all about love, and everything they do is all about hate, I'm not here to judge them, but the instruction I was given as a Christian for how to approach them is, you will know them by their ways. A lot of us just live that way anyway, whether it's about a specific religious group or not. It's a wise way to live. People group for a reason. People do what they do for a reason. I can't say they were or weren't Christians, but I can say this. If they're saying they are and they're not acting like the instructions for being one, that's somewhat of a questionable problem, isn't it? But that's the answer I give on that. And I kind of wished I'd ever had a conversation where it was actually talking about faith. And then I realized through my studies, because spirituality is of great interest to me, which again the church and highly religious people almost ruined. And then a series of terrible things happened to me, and I had a lot of time to embrace myself. Got to take a sip so I can calm down. My reaction to people doing horrible things was to delve back into me. I started studying spirituality some more, and I found that there actually are a lot of Christians who feel things like me. But then there are a lot of Christians who don't. The reason why I believe, as an autistic person who's logical, in a religious thing, which is supposed to be non-logical and is based on faith, which in its essence isn't supposed to be logical. It's supposed to be about something else. The reason why I believe is I'm trying to figure out if I already said this, and I can't remember. I can feel the presence of God. I can feel the presence of God at all times, in all places. It's not based on an event. It's not based on an experience. It's not based on the energy in the room or a human being or the color of their hair or the way they're dressed. It's not based on the language they use or the language they refuse to use. It's basically never based on that at all. Like, it's never affected by that. I can feel the presence of my God and have been able to feel it all of my life. And I didn't know until recently, studying different types of Christianity, studying forms where historically a lot of women were spoken to by God, and then the church, as it was then, decided to wipe that out. And I find it interesting because the thing they were wiping out was the feminine aspect of faith and that connection. But I didn't know about this. It's apparently been hidden, and it's not something I was taught. I've seen it. I've seen other people who are going after it. I didn't know there's some people who believe that it's anti-Christian to believe that you can have a relationship with God. That's fascinating to me because they refer to this being as God the Father, which means a parent insignia has been placed. What you're saying, if you believe it's God the Father in a parent place, and that you can't have a connection with God the Father, it's saying that this is a parent who finds you beneath them in such a way that it defames and defiles them for you to seek them for their loving qualities, for even their loving qualities, or just to know the essence of their face. I don't believe that for that reason. I can believe that somebody else could believe that and have a relationship with God, because I'm not trying to run around and decide what is and what is not a relationship with God and what's valid and all that. I literally am too busy spending my entire life making sure I have any amount of faith or comfort in the relationship I have. I'm definitely not taking away time from my life and my journey to decide what other people can and can't have, because it doesn't sound right to me. But when I was studying this, I found out that there are people who don't have that feeling. And in finding out that there are people who don't have it, or who believe that it can't be had, I started to understand why some of the people I have known have acted that way. And I've started to understand why people have an issue with the concept of religion and separate it from spirituality. And now all of a sudden it's an issue of semantics instead of an issue of faith. We're not having faith. And inside of the Christian church, I'm going to tell you there's a lot of stuff I would not refer to as the presence of God under duress.